Hare Krishna. Today we'll be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 5, text 10. Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate na sapapena padmapatram ivam bhasa. It's a beautiful verse and a beautiful analogy. Brahmani adhaya karmani. Our karmani, our activities have to be dedicated, adhaya, or placed under or resigned unto. Our activities have to be for the purpose of Brahmani. Brahmani means Parabrahman, Krishna. Prabhupada explains in quite detail why Brahman refers to Krishna from the Vedic hymns. Sarvam etad Brahma tasmad etad Brahma nama rupam annam cha jayate. Mama yonir mahat Brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham. This whole Mahat Brahma, the whole material existence, stays at the lotus feet of Krishna. Or it is the source, Krishna is the source of its existence. Mama Yonihi, I am the source of this Mahat Brahma. Arjuna also uses the word Param Brahma. You are the highest, ultimate Brahman from which everything exists. It comes out. So Krishna is Parabrahma. So Krishna in this verse, is being referred to as Brahmani. So our karmani has to be placed or resigned unto Krishna. And Sangam Tyaktva, we should not have any attachment to enjoy that result of that work. Yah karoti, one who does this, lipyate nasa papena, he does not become entangled in papa. Papena na lipyate saha, that person na lipyate, does not get affected by the papa of that activity. Just like Padmapatram ivam bhasa. Padmapatram means the lotus leaf. Ambhasa means water, or in the water, or like a lake which has lotus leaf. But the lotus leaf always remains unsoaked. Like if you put some water on the top of the lotus leaf, it just slides away. It doesn't soak or it doesn't contaminate that lotus leaf. So the activity is compared to like the water or the drops of water. And if we resign that activity unto Krishna, we become like the lotus leaf, and the activity cannot contaminate us. Otherwise, it contaminates us. So if we want to live in this world free of sinful reaction, free of contamination, then all our activities have to be resigned unto Krishna, have to be authorized by Krishna, which is technically called yagna. Yagnardha karma. Because this material world is so unforgiving. Every activity there is going to be contamination. There's going to be reaction. So there is this sage who at the end of his life was taken to Yamaraj. And the sage was quite startled. That was the least thing he was expecting. That was the least of the places he was expecting to go after death. And they were about to give him punishment, where there was this spear, sharp spear, which is supposed to pierce into his body from the bottom. And he, by his mystic power, he stopped them and summoned Yamaraj, wanted to understand why he is being punished like this. And then Yamaraj came and told him, see, it is because at your childhood, when you are a very small boy, You pierced a ant, a big ant, those fat ants or a big insect with a stick through its rectum. And the ant died and suffered so much pain. And that is the reason why you are getting this pain. And then the sage, he argued from the Shastra that small boy, very small boy, he does not even have proper discrimination and he is not eligible to be accounted for such activities. And because you have done wrong, then may you become a Sudra. So that is why Yamaraj comes down as Vidura. So you can see how intricate these sinful activities are, or any activity, not just sinful activity. Any activity is so contaminating without our knowledge. Unfortunately, people, they don't have any conception of karma. They just act for their sense gratification. Whatever is convenient for their sense happiness, they are doing, unfortunately, not caring about future life. Prabhupada used to tell an incident during his times. There was this young man who went to a businessman, and he said to this businessman, see, I want, my father passed away, and when he passed away, he told me to clear all his debts, and mentioned you as one of those people who gave him debt. So I'd like to clear your debt. So please tell me how much my father owes. See, the value system, now they will, no, that is my father's account, I don't care. But the son assumes the father's account and he has to be responsible. Otherwise, he will face that reaction in the next life or in this life. So this businessman said, let me look at this account. And he said, no, your father does not owe me anything. I don't want to take anything from you. See, the businessman could have, they don't have any document. He could have easily said some sum, which typically could happen in nowadays, to exploit somebody. And he said, no, your father does not owe me anything. And the young man said, no, my father owes me something. I want to clear off the debt. I don't want to be held culpable for that. And then this man is saying, no, I don't want to take unnecessarily. So this was the situation. So somehow they resolved. But what the point Prabhupada was mentioning was, this is the kind of value system that existed. That every single activity of ours, there is a witness. It's going to be held responsible. Even Yudhishthira, he felt so much responsible for the massacre of so many hundreds, thousands of millions of people who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He thought it is purely because of him, because of the need to be the king, because of his desire to be the king, that such a big massacre has happened. Whoever told him, he would not get convinced, including Lord Krishna. Of course, it was the pastime of the Lord. So they all Krishna took him to Bhishma Dev, who was on the final stages. Ichha Mrityu he was on the bed of arrows, as we know. So finally, Bhishma Deva had to convince him that there was no wrong on your part because you're following the order of Krishna. Whatever you did was for the desire of Krishna. It was his desire ultimately. So you have nothing to worry. So there was no reaction on their part. Even though such a big massacre has happened for their benefit. See how Krishna consciousness even transcends the regular mundane morality and mundane values. The regular mundane value, of course, Krishna conscious, a person who is Krishna conscious also has all these good qualities. Like a devotee would never want to hurt anybody. Like we know how this Murgari, after becoming a devotee from being a hunter, he was jumping and walking to receive his spiritual master because he didn't want to even stamp on a small ant. From being such a violent man to that of a soft hearted man. Like Jadabharata was walking, as we know, carrying the palanquin. He was careful not to step on any insect or ant. So, a Krishna conscious person automatically develops all the good qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha. Suraha gunaha samasate. All the great qualities of the devatas he accumulates because of his devotional service. Because wherever there is Krishna, there is only light, there is only knowledge. The devotee can never do anything which is in illusion or ignorance. But still, when it is required, the devotee does not hesitate to do something which may be ordinarily seen as mundane or injustice or not in line with the social norm. Like Arjuna and Yudhishthira, they were killing. Yudhishthira had to tell a lie. Arjuna had to shoot the arrow to a helpless Karna. The gopis, they gave up their family relations to come and meet Krishna at the dead of the night. So all this may seem a devotee is not acting and he acting properly and he will face severe reaction. No, far from that. They are actually becoming transcendental by acting for Krishna in that way. Of course, in normal situations, one should not do that. Only when Krishna authorizes or the spiritual master authorizes. One should not act independently, whimsically. Bhakti is never to be done whimsically. You should always remember. Just because I am a bhakta, oh, now I got the license to do this kind of things and give the examples of these famous personalities. No. Only when there is specific order from Krishna, and Krishna gives the order only to his very special pure devotees to do this kind of things. For a particular purpose, to set the law and order, to establish dharma, to reciprocate with his loving devotees. So, for various reasons. But the point is that a Krishna conscious devotee who is acting, his karmani is for adhaya brahmani, for Krishna, he never na lipyate na sapapena. He never becomes contaminated by his activities. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. So, everything in this world comes from Brahman or Krishna. Like they say, the Big Bang caused this material existence. So, that means there was a chunk and then there was explosion and everything came. That even the scientists, they agree. But the question is, how did this chunk, what is this chunk made of? That they cannot answer. They say it is non-material. We cannot know what it is. And how it got exploded. That Prabhupada explained in one nice conversation. See, like sometimes you see a object lying on the street like a pot or a rock or something. And after a few days, it breaks. Why? Because it has been soaked by the hot sun day in and day out for a long time. And then it becomes dry, and then it breaks. So like that, hot sun is the reason why that explosion happens. Similarly, there must be a source of that explosion. That is the glance of Mahavishnu. It is explained in the scripture. Sa aikshata, sa asrujata. These are the words mentioned in the scriptures. The Lord glanced on this Mahatattva substance and it got agitated, and the modes of material nature got produced, and everything in this material world started to expand. The sense objects, the senses, everything, the material elements are produced. So this is the reason of this manifestation. That's what Prabhupada explains in the purport, that although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause, from Krishna. In the Isopanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. Isha Vashyam Idam Sarvam. Everything belongs to Krishna. Nothing belongs to us. But we are given this body just like a person is given a rental property to occupy. We are an occupier of this body. Or a car is leased to you. The car doesn't belong to you, it's leased. So you can use it for your purpose, but you cannot damage it. Then you have to pay the price. You cannot use it even more than the miles that it is supposed to. Then you have to pay more fine. So everything belongs to God, and we have to use that for God's purpose. Therefore, everything engaged in the service of the Lord naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. Of course, generally, the devotee doesn't do so-called sinful activity, but if it is authorized, may look like sin, he does not get affected. And then Prabhupada mentions, even one's material body being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. So our body also has to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. The body is the gift of the Lord. The body, we should not think the body is ours. So people, they they say, oh, the body is, it's mine. I can act as long as I don't disturb others. I can act however I want. So what is the harm? I mind my own business and I live very responsibly. People, the socialists, they say, oh, I live very responsibly. I don't have anything to do with God. No, for health, I can even drink alcohol, or I can have intoxicants as long as it is reasonable, and sometimes it is for my health. So the answer is no, the body is not belong, it doesn't belong to you. Just like the same example, you occupy this rental property and now you start to paint it with different paint, or you start to break the floor. I don't know, I want to live like this, breaking the floor. I want natural mud inside the house. I don't want the carpet. So, or a regular floor. No, you cannot do however you want. This is a property of the Lord. That is why these four things are regulated, restricted. The four pillars of sinful activity, like the intoxicants. The intoxicants, they destroy one of the pillar called austerity. By being intoxicated, you forget or you lose the art of tapasya. Human body is meant for tapasya, tapodivyam. Putrakayena sattvam, Rishabhadeva says. So like that, every pillar, meat eating, destroys compassion. Illicit relations destroys our internal cleanliness. Suchi, purity, is destroyed. So gambling destroys truthfulness. So to protect these principles, these are prescribed. You cannot do however you want. So the body also has to be engaged. in the service of the Lord. So, if somebody is engaged in the service of the Lord, even the body becomes purified. It doesn't matter which birth he has taken. One time, Srila Prabhupada came to New York. He stayed at the apartment of one devotee's father, Chandanacharya Prabhu. And the father was quite a wealthy man who had his apartment. And it was quite convenient for Srila Prabhupada to stay. And Prabhupada was staying at that place, and the devotees were visiting him. And one time there was prasadam, and after that Prabhupada was first time he was talking from Chaitanya Bhagavat, explaining a nice shloka, which basically said, Muchi Muchi hoy shuchi hoy yadi Krishna bhaje, suchi hoy muchi hoy yadi Krishna tyaje. What it means? Muchi means a contamination. Muchi means a cobbler or a person who is born in the lower body. He's dealing with the skin of the animal and all that. So, typically considered abominable lower body. But Yadi Krishna Bhaje, if he takes to Krishna's bhajana or devotional service of Krishna, Muchi becomes a Suchi or a Brahmana. He becomes as good as Brahmana. And a Suchi hoy, Muchi hoy, Yadi Krishna Tyaje, if you leave Krishna, even a so-called birth in a Brahmana family, you are considered a Muchi, contaminated. See? It doesn't matter where you are born. As Krishna says, the body changes. Every moment the body is changing, isn't it? Dehinosmin yadha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tadha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. Every moment the body is changing. After 5 years, we will look completely different. You look at your pictures. Hey, I was looking so young. So the body is changing. So if you engage in the service, your body changes. No more a contaminated body. The body becomes spiritual. That's what the verse is saying. Brahmani adhaya karman, including your body, you have to engage in the service of the Lord. Then even the body becomes spiritual. Prabhupada, one time he wrote a letter. He said his health was not good and his sleep was often disturbed because there was some sound, gong, gong, gong sound in his head. And he had occasional headaches and a ringing in his left ear. And none of the prescriptions of the doctors helped. And then so he wrote a letter saying, I may inform you in this connection that I am at the present moment physically unfit. I'm always having a buzzing sound in my brain. I cannot sleep at night. But still I'm working because I try to be on my position of spiritual platform. Still, if we were in that situation, even when we are young, what to speak when we are like 70 plus, it's you cannot function. But Prabhupada was still continuing his duty of writing. And then he said, he even mentioned to them that if his inability to sleep continued, he would take it as Krishna's blessing for him to get more time to write his books. See, that was his mentality. Even though the body is not cooperating, but he was still using his body for the service of the Lord. Prabhupada sometimes he would he would preach in his apartment when he was staying. So he looked at his disciples. They were still not very, their bodies, the Western devotees, their bodies were not capable for austerity and even for reading Sanskrit or Bengali. And now he sees these devotees are taking austerity and going everywhere. Like in Bombay, they went and somebody gave them accommodation, and the devotees had bed bugs bites all over the body, and they had to tolerate that. And somehow they were given another Ram Mandir accommodation, very tight accommodation, but somehow they adjusted and they were working. So, like that, devotees had to undergo so many austerities. And they went to Kumbh Mela, cold atmosphere, wherever they went, they had to adjust. And then they were learning Sanskrit and Bengali to read these shlokas. So, Prabhupada, he looked at these disciples and said, "See, this is very nice. Just like a child is learning to write, his writing may not be perfect, it may be crooked or imperfect. But the teacher wants to see that the students are trying. It doesn't matter how well they are doing, but just that they are fully engaged. So it is just like our service to Krishna. What can we do for Krishna? Krishna is everything. He doesn't need our service, but he wants to see that we are trying. We are trying a little bit to give him service. That is the whole idea. So little service we can do with our body even. Then even our body becomes spiritual completely. In fact, even in this body, one is considered liberated. If Nikhilasvapi avasthasu iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira Nikhilasvapi avasthasu jivan muktasya uchyate. A person is said to be jivan mukta even within this body if his endeavor iha yasya harer dasya is for the service of Krishna with his karmana manasa gira, with his activities, with his mind, with his words. What is meant for Krishna is considered to be liberated. He won't be afflicted. Just like Padma Patram Ivambhasa, just like the water sliding off of the lotus leaf. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments? Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki